$1.7 trillion. The most expensive weapons program in history, and right now, a huge chunk of those jets can't fly. Not because they got shot down, not because they're outdated, because they're waiting for parts. The F-35 was sold as the affordable stealth workhorse. One jet for every mission, ready for anything. What we actually got? A specialized tool so expensive we can barely afford to use it. The most capable jet we can't actually field. You're about to see what the sales pitch left out, the real operating costs, the readiness shell game, and why taxpayers were never told the truth. This is what Lockheed doesn't want you focusing on. Buckle up. All right, before you think this is just another F-35 hit piece, stop. The F-35 is brilliant at some things. Sensor fusion, stealth, seeing first, shooting first. But here's what Lockheed's sales team doesn't lead with. The jet's so expensive and complicated that air forces can't afford to fly it as much as they need to. That's a readiness crisis hiding in plain sight. This isn't about whether the F-35 is good. It's about whether we got what we paid for. The F-35 was sold as a universal solution. Affordable, always ready. Turns out it's a specialized tool we can barely afford to use. We paid for a Swiss Army knife. We got an expensive scalpel that sits in the drawer. Here are 3 things Lockheed doesn't want you focusing on. First up, the bill nobody mentioned. Let's talk money. Real money. Here's what's at stake. If you can't afford to fly your jets, you don't have an air force. You have expensive lawn ornaments. Let's start with the sticker price. F-35A costs around $80 million per jet now. Lockheed loves to brag about that. But the real cost? It's what you pay to fly it. Operating cost, $38,000 to $42,000 per flight hour. F-16, about $25,000 per hour. F-15EX, $29,000 to $32,000. That's a $13,000 to $17,000 gap every single hour you fly. Now multiply that by thousands of hours. Hundreds of jets, 30 years. That gap becomes a canyon. And this is where it gets ugly. Lifetime sustainment costs balloon to over $1 trillion. Cost per jet per year keeps climbing above what they promised. Way above. Here's what that looks like. Air forces are flying fewer hours than planned just to stay in budget. You bought a supercar but can only afford to drive it on weekends. Except this isn't a hobby. This is national defense. And it gets worse. Even when you can afford to fly, you might not be able to. Supply chain bottlenecks mean jets sit waiting for parts. Weeks, sometimes months. Proprietary Lockheed ecosystem. No local fixes, no workarounds. You don't own the jet. You rent access to Lockheed's support network. Let me paint you a picture. You're a squadron commander. You've got 24 F-35s on paper. Tuesday morning, you need to launch 12 for training. You check readiness. 4 jets down for scheduled maintenance. 3 waiting on engine parts, 2 weeks out. 2 have software issues requiring a Lockheed tech. 1's got a helmet display problem. You can launch 10 jets. Maybe. Now imagine that's not training. That's day 1 of an actual war. Here's what everyone gets wrong. Everyone focuses on the $80 million price tag, but that's just the down payment. The real cost is the extra $13,000 per flight hour over an F-16. Multiplied by 30 years, multiplied by 2,000 jets. Lockheed sold you on the sticker price, they buried the subscription fee. And now you're locked in. Okay, so it's expensive, but it's worth it, right? Because it's always ready when you need it? Let's talk about what mission capable actually means, because this is where the sales pitch really falls apart. All right, so the F-35 costs more to fly, a lot more. Here's what's at stake. In a war, you don't fight with the jets you own. You fight with the jets that can actually fly. And that number? Way lower than you think. Let's start with what they promised. Original target? 80% mission capable rates. Reality? The fleet often struggles to hit 50 to 55%. And here's the kicker. Mission capable doesn't even mean combat ready. It just means it can fly, maybe do some training. True full mission capable, meaning it can do its actual combat job, even lower. You bought 100 jets. On any given day, you can launch 50, if you're lucky. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Why? Because every hour you fly generates maintenance debt. Heavy maintenance takes way longer than planned. Depot backlogs mean jets wait months for deep work. Months. Here's the trap. The more you fly it, the less available it becomes. You need flight hours to keep pilots current, but flight hours break the jet. Which grounds more jets? It's like a sports car that needs a week in the shop for every day you drive it. And it gets worse. The logistics system, ALIS, now Odin, has been plagued with issues. Global parts distribution can't keep up. Single supply chain, single point of failure. In peacetime, jets wait weeks for parts. In a real war, can this system even keep up? Nobody knows. Let me show you how bad this is. GAO report drops. F-35 fleet averaging around 50% mission-capable rates. Pentagon tries to spin it. We're improving. Growing pains. Here's what that actually means. You bought 100 jets. You can launch 50, maybe. Now compare that to F-15s. F-16s. Jets from the 1970s and 80s. They're hitting 70 to 75% readiness. The newest jet in the inventory is less reliable than the jets it's supposed to replace. That's not a bug. That's a feature of complexity you can't afford to maintain. Here's what everyone assumes. More advanced equals more capable. Wrong. Here's what Vietnam and Desert Storm taught us. Availability is capability. A jet that's 20% better but only available 50% of the time is worse than a jet that's good enough and ready 75% of the time. The F-35 is the most capable jet we can't actually field. Okay, so it costs more. It's available less. But at least when it flies, it's worth it, right? Let's talk about what it actually does and what you're paying stealth prices for, because this is where the sales pitch really comes apart. All right, costs it's more, available less. But at least when it flies, it does everything, right? Let's talk about what the F-35 actually does and what you're paying for. Here's what's at stake. If you use the wrong tool for the job, you waste money. And in a war, you run out of the right tool when you need it. So let's start with what they sold you. One jet for every mission. Air superiority, strike. Close air support, reconnaissance, everything. Reality? It's optimized for one thing. High-end penetrating strike in contested airspace, breaking into enemy air defenses, hunting mobile surface-to-air missiles. Everything else? You're using a Formula One car to run to the grocery store. Most missions flown don't need stealth. Air policing, training, close air support in uncontested airspace. But you pay stealth costs anyway, $38,000 per hour. And here's where the math falls apart. Stealth and sensors are brilliant when you need them. Problem. You can't afford enough F-35s to do all the jobs. Air forces are quietly buying F-15s, F-18 Block 3s, F-16s. Why? To fill the gaps. Here's the question nobody wants to ask. One F-35 or two F-16s plus a Reaper drone? Same budget, which gives you more combat power for 90% of missions. And it gets worse. Because you don't really own this jet. Partner nations bought in expecting autonomy. Reality? Can't modify software without Lockheed approval. Can't source parts locally. Can't do depot-level maintenance without Lockheed infrastructure. You didn't buy a jet, you bought a subscription, and Lockheed controls the terms. Let me show you how this plays out. Norway, 2020. Flying F-35s for quick reaction alert. Escorting Russian bombers away from NATO airspace. It works, but here's the question nobody asks. Did you need a $38,000 per hour stealth jet to intercept a Russian bear everyone already sees on radar? Or could an F-16 have done that for $25,000 per hour? Multiply that by 1,000 intercepts. That's $13 million burned on missions that didn't need stealth. Meanwhile, when you actually need the F-35, penetrating Chinese air defenses, hunting mobile surface-to-air, half your fleet's in the maintenance bay. You're using your scalpel to open boxes. When you need surgery, the scalpel's broken. Here's the secret Lockheed doesn't advertise. The F-35 was never designed to replace everything. It was designed to kick down the door in the first 48 hours of a war, then get pulled back while cheaper jets do the cleanup. That's the mission. But we bought it like it was going to fly every mission, every day, forever. We paid for a scalpel and expected a Swiss Army knife. And now we're stuck using a $38,000 per hour scalpel to open cardboard boxes. So where does that leave us? Let me bring this home. Remember the opening? $1.7 trillion, jets sitting in the hangar. Now you know why. It's not that the F-35 is bad, it's that we paid for a promise we never got. We were sold a universal solution, affordable, always ready. What we got was a specialized tool so expensive and complicated that we can barely afford to use it. And nobody told taxpayers that trade-off up front. If this opened your eyes to how defense spending actually works, hit subscribe. Because the most expensive solution isn't always the best solution. Sometimes it's just the most expensive. See you in the next one.